And the list could go on and on and on. And the truth is, we feel things that stress us out, both emotionally and physically. And the series is kind of talking through how we handle these stress villains, if you will, in our lives when they come, right? And maybe when we talked about it a couple weeks ago, you're saying, oh man, I really don't like talking about stress. Talking about stress just makes me more stressed, and now I'm even more stressed. I came here to talk about stress, and I was already stressed when I came in here, and I don't want to talk about stress anymore. The point of talking about stress isn't so that you'd be more stressed. But my hope is that as we look at what God teaches us in His Word when it comes to stress, we would learn how to better handle stress in a healthy way. Because 2 weeks ago, we talked about how stress is inevitable, right? And Paul was teaching us this as we were reading in His Word. He says, hey, cast your cares onto God because He cares for you. Cast your cares on God because He cares for you. And what that doesn't mean is when something stressful comes, you just say, hey, God, hey, I know you got this, and then just poof, it's gone, right? But what we learned is that when stress comes, we ultimately want to do something, right? We want to figure out how to handle that on our own. So we have worry, we have anxiety, we have fear, we have doubt. And what Paul is teaching us is the proper thing to do when stress comes, because it's going to come. Stress is inevitable. We should learn the habit of casting that care on to God. And we're going to look at some more things and some more ways that God teaches us how to handle stress today. And I think if we're honest, we'd admit that something that brings a lot of stress into our lives is when we think about the ways that we either fit in or don't fit in compared to everybody else. And there's probably a lot of words that we could use to talk about this, and this isn't something that goes away, right? But something I think a good way to describe this would be self-consciousness. And self-consciousness is that thing that makes you ask the questions like, am I funny enough? Am I athletic enough? Am I cool enough? Am I popular enough? Am I pretty enough? Am I strong enough? And we've all experienced self-consciousness in our lives. And if you think you haven't and you don't care, this one word could probably help you understand that, especially if you've had experience with it, which most of us have, and that's acne, right? So I had really bad acne and stuff when I was in high school, and I still get it at times, and I instantly become extremely aware of myself, and particularly my face when I get around other people. And so that is self-consciousness, right? And unless you have magical unicorn skin, at some point in your life, you'll be able to relate on this topic. But self-consciousness makes you aware of multiple things. It makes you aware of you, people who are seeing you, and what those people are perceiving you as. So you, other people, and what those people think. And all of these realizations happen at once. And if you've ever had that where you're fixated on your skin or something about yourself because you know you're going to be around a lot of people, you understand self-consciousness and you understand what kind of stress that can bring in your life. Awareness of yourself and your perception of how other people accept or reject you almost always leads to stress. But it's not always just in the way that we look that brings the stress. Maybe you've had a time in your life where you feel like you were left out of something, right? Maybe you heard about a party that you didn't get to go to, or friends hanging out that you didn't get to be a part of, and you became aware of the fact that either they just didn't think about you or that you weren't invited, and then self-consciousness comes and stress comes in our life. And we've all been there. We've all had this happen to us at one point in our lives. And another thing that brings us stress is other people's expectations of us. Can anybody relate to that? Other people's expectations of us. So maybe you play a sport and you just have a coach or a director that is always just drilling you. And maybe they want what's best for you, but the expectation they have on you and the way that they push you every single practice just brings stress into your life. Maybe you have a parent or a step parent that expects a certain grade from you. Maybe they expect you to follow in their footsteps. Maybe they expect you to dress different than you dress or to act a certain way that brings you stress because of their expectations. Maybe it's because you know you're called to be a leader where you're at, and sometimes you feel like you disappoint yourself and you feel like you could be a better leader at times, and you have those own expectations even on yourself. And you bring stress in your life. And these tensions, this stress in our life, normally always has to do with other people being in our lives, right? So we have to learn how to handle stress in a healthy way, because stress is inevitable, and people are inevitable in our lives and are a great blessing in our life that we have relationships. So we have to learn how to handle stress with other people watching. And so today I want to turn into God's word, and we're going to read a little bit. We're just going to read one proverb, and this comes from a guy named Solomon. And he was said to be one of the wisest people ever of all time. And he would write these proverbs, and often when he would write a proverb, he'd kind of have a comparison of something bad and something good. And you could kind of decide whether or not you wanted the first one or the second one. And so it's a really, really cool proverb we're going to look at. But just to give you some background on King Solomon, that was what I was going to tell you, is that he was a king. And so if you're a king, you understand stress and expectations, right? Just think about the last election. Nobody holds back when somebody of influence is around. Everybody likes to share their opinions, good or bad, whether or not they even know these people. People pour out their opinions about you, about what you and your family do, about the decisions you make as a leader. So this guy really understands what it's like to have expectations put on him and to have stress in his life. And so this is what the proverb says. We're just going to read the first half. It says, fear of man will prove to be a snare. Proverbs 29:25. Fear of man will prove to be a snare. So a snare is not like a snare drum. It's a trap. Right? A snare is a trap. So imagine like a mouse trap. Right? When you put a mouse trap out, what are you hoping happens? That you catch a mouse, and when you catch a mouse, what happens? You want it to stay there, right? When you catch a mouse, you hope that in that trap, it's stuck. And so maybe today, you can kind of relate to that idea that people's expectations of you and the stress in your life has left you trapped. And you feel trapped in fear, you feel trapped in frustration, you feel trapped in bitterness or insecurity or self-doubt, and you feel like you can't get past it. Right? So maybe Solomon is pretty wise, because he says fear of man, worrying about what people will think about you, will prove to be a snare or a trap in your life. And maybe today you're here and you feel trapped. We all hate it, but we get trapped anyways, because that's what traps do, right? No mouse was like, oh man, I'm so pumped. I just got stuck in this trap, dude. It finally happened. This is the best day of my life, dude. I love traps, right? That is not what mice do. Right, Justin? Oh, they don't. Yeah, you're complicating it. Don't complicate it. It's not what mice do. Right? A mouse gets stuck in a trap, and instantly they think, I don't want to be here, but I'm stuck here. Right? And so maybe something in your life, as we read through that list, fear or frustration or bitterness or insecurity or self-doubt, maybe you're in that and you say, I'm stuck here. I'm here and I don't want to be here. Why am I stuck here? And I want to read this second half of this proverb to you. It says, but whoever trusts in the Lord is kept safe. Whoever trusts in the Lord is kept safe. Now, what are they kept safe from? They're safe from fearing what everybody thinks about them. They're safe from the trap. They're safe from being stuck in any of these things because they trust in God. And so what they're doing is they're trading their stress for His strength. They're trading your stress for His strength. What is a good word you think for the opposite of stressed out? I'll give you a few first ones. Joyful, peaceful, calm. What are some other ones we could use? Chill. Yeah. Opposite of stressed out. Not stressed out. That does work. What else? All right, there's some more on here. Confident. Happy. Strong. Not stressed out. You doing. Hopeful. Right? And we all want these words to be a reality in our life, do we not? So we need something else, and we need to learn how to trade our stress for his strength. Right? When we stop placing our greatest value on what other people think, when we stop worrying about how other people see us, and when we stop overthinking why we aren't included, and instead we pursue a sense of belonging that comes from the one who made us and pursue seeing ourselves as he sees us, then a trap of stress and worry and self-consciousness loosens, and things like joy and peace become more possible for us to experience in our lives. And that is trading your stress for his strength. And one of the most important ways to keep this trap from overpowering us is to identify it, right? And so here are some ways that we can identify it. Identify the trap. What is it that makes you self-conscious and stressed out because of pressure and expectations? Right? And so I'm going to list a few, and maybe your trap is in here, maybe it isn't. Maybe it could be your outfit or how you feel like you look that day. Could be a big test or exam coming up. It could just be scrolling through Instagram. It could be a big game or upcoming performance. Could be lunchtime in the cafeteria. It was not a good time for me. Could be one particular class in your schedule. Could just be homework. It could be the weekends when people seem to be hanging out with friends. It could be the time that you're listening to sermons at church. Could be every other weekend when you stay at your dad and stepmom's house. Could be college applications. It could be even just looking in the mirror, or it could just be gym class, right? You get the idea. There's a lot of things that you could be trapped in. There's a lot of things that you can be trapped in. Now identify the trapper. Who is it that makes this experience particularly stressful? Maybe it's your best friend. Maybe it's your coach or teacher, a parent or step-parent. It could be the Mean Girls. I'm not talking about the movie. Not talking about the movie. It could be the group of people that you used to be friends with. It could be me. I could stress you out. It could be one particular person who intimidates you. It could be your ex-boyfriend or your ex-girlfriend, okay? And it may not be somebody that's on this list, but they're on your list, right? And now that we've identified the trap, we know what next? Now that we identified the trap, what next? And there's a lot of adults who haven't got this far in the process of learning how to deal with stress by identifying what it is that brings us stress. Is it expectation, or is it something that we have to do? Who is it that brings us stress in our lives? And I just want to point something out real quick before we close. And Ty, you guys can come back up. I don't know if it's just you. But Ty's going to come back up real quick. And I just want to point out one last thing to you guys before close with a little story, right, of a mom and a little boy at the circus. Okay, who's ever been to the circus? Yeah. So let's not go circus. Mom and a little boy at the fair. Who's ever been to the fair? There's an elephant in the story. Are elephants at the fair? All right, we're going back to circus then. All right, back to circus. We're at the zoo. All right, okay, let's bring it in. Bring it in. Bring it in. All right. In case you guys didn't hear, we're at the zoo now. All right. Here's the thing. All right, so a boy is with his mom at the zoo. Okay? And he notices this elephant just kind of stuck where it's at. And this is a full-grown elephant, right? And it's stuck where it's at because it's got a chain on its leg that's way smaller than an elephant. Right? So the mom begins to teach her son this story that is true, that when you chain an elephant as a baby, they try to get away. And eventually they just kind of stop because they realize they're never going to. So even when they get way bigger and way stronger than this chain is on their leg, they feel like they're stuck. Right? They feel like they can't get anywhere because they're just so used to being stuck. And even though they could break that chain, they never do. Because they simply believe that even if they tried, it wouldn't work. And so there's people here tonight that believe that they're stuck in fear, stuck in anxiety, stuck in self-doubt, stuck in worry, stuck in sin, because you're not trusting God. You're not believing in the power of God. God says we're raised to a new life in Christ. So set your eyes on the things of heaven and not the things of earth. We need to get our eyes above the waves long enough to see that God is bigger than any trap that the enemy tries to use in our life. Fear of man proves to be a snare, but whoever trusts in God is kept safe. Would you turn your eyes on God tonight? If you've never followed God, if you've never given your life to Jesus, I urge you to do that. The only reason that we can have a relationship with God is because Jesus died on the cross in our place, rose from the dead, defeating death, giving us victory in this life, so that we could have a relationship with God the Father again, because he loves us that much. And he says in response to that, would you turn from the life that you're living and would you follow me? So I urge you tonight, if you're not following Jesus, to follow Jesus with everything that you have. But tonight, if you feel like you're trapped, would you trust God? Would you trust God that there is power in the name of Jesus? Because he says the same power that rose Jesus from the dead lives in us. So there is no sin that's in our life that we can't rise above, leaning on the power of Jesus. You cannot do it on your own. So would you trust in God tonight? No more fear, no more worry, no more doubt, but trust in the God that loves you so much that he doesn't want to see you trapped for another moment. I love you guys.